Thank you so much for coming out today. I'm George Sampson and this is Maddie Morris, and we're going to be, that was a joke. I'm Maddie Morris, this is George Sampson, and we're going to share a few tracks today. The first song is called Bonny Bunch of Roses, which I did a commission with an organisation called Rural Arts, looking at the stories from the Queer Stories Archive, the West Yorkshire Queer Stories Archive, and traditional song, and trying to make connections between traditional tunes collected in Yorkshire and queer stories collected in Yorkshire. And this song was one of the first that I put together. So yeah, cool. You go. I went out for to buy my love a bonny bunch of roses, all for to leave them by her door, to find tomorrow morn. Although I can't tell if she knows the way in my garden's love it grows, I hope she'll see the roses so as a sign of love forlorn. My darling rose bears a thorn. The first time that I met my love, a warmth it spread through all of me, a laughter soft and so refined, and eyes of deepest green. My love only speaks quietly, but all the words she chooses to speak, she is in truth Calliope, her breath my poetry. But I wish she would see. The last time that I met my love, I begged her for to leave with me, to take a chance and start again, to leave Bedford behind. My love bloomed late like rosemary flowers in winter, planted like a cedar. My invitation came too soon for my love to bear dark leaves. I hope she leaves with me. I went out for to buy my love a bonny bunch of roses, all for to leave them by her door, to find tomorrow morn. Instead of roses with sweet bluebells, have been better for to say farewell. For either way my love won't quell
Good afternoon to everybody here in the room, and hello to everybody in the live stream. Hi, Mum.
Hi, Mum.
We're actually siblings, so we do share the same mum. Because all it takes to be related these days is a pair of glasses and a bald head. If you ask nicely, in about 10 minutes maybe, once it gets pretty warm, Maddie might do a head reveal. But only if we've got 10,000 people on the live stream, so tell your friends.
Thank you so much. This next song is called The Day You Asked, and I wrote it as part of the project using traditional tunes. The tune was collected in Leeds in the 1800s by the lovely Frank Kidson. I say the lovely, I don't actually know that much about Frank Kidson. Anyway, when I spent a lot of time looking at the Queer Stories archive, and it's a free archive to access. You can read or listen to people sort of talking about their experiences of growing up queer in West Yorkshire and just living as a queer person in West Yorkshire. And there were loads of really lovely stories and loads of stories about incredible pain and living in really areas of massive intolerance. And which is a real shame. And I think there are areas of intolerance even in beautiful, wonderful, fantastic places. And I think it's really hard and tricky to talk about them. And I think when I wrote this song, I wrote about my experience of living in a small sort of rural community in West Yorkshire. And when I started gigging it, I really wanted to name and shame and said, and I lived in this place and it was horrendous and this is why it was so frustrating. But actually, I think what's more important is to recognise that these places can exist wherever we are, and acknowledging them and talking about them is the first step to being able to change them. And it's not about a specific place, it's more about, the way we're able to challenge it and also being able to share these stories. So it's called The Day You Asked.
To be
Thank you. With this concert series being called, and it's written up there, Untold, Unheard and Hidden Stories, I was thinking about the stories that we don't always hear about queer narratives. And sometimes it feels impossible to hear just really straightforward, nice, happy queer narratives. And also operating in the folk scene, you don't often hear just really nice, happy narratives in songs anyway. And I was in a folk club shortly after I moved to Leeds, and someone sang this tune. And it's originally the tune's about a guy called Willie and a lady called Mary. And I heard it as Lily and Mary. And I was like, Leeds is so cool and progressive. That's amazing. I realised towards the end of the song that the person singing it was singing Willie. But I thought, that's an idea. And then started singing this as Lily and Mary. And it tells the story of two people who just, have a really nice time, get married. And I really like the line, the blackbirds and thrushes singing chorus. I just think that's really pretty. This is the Wee Weaver. Oh, and it's an Irish tune. That feels important to say as well. I am a wee weaver, confined to my loom. My love, she is fair as the red rose in June. She is loved by all young men, and that does grieve me. My heart's in the bosom of lovely Mary. As Lily and Mary rove by yon shady bower, where Lily and Mary spent many the hour, the blackbirds and thrushes sang in chorus encore the praises of Mary and of love fair and sure. As Lily and Mary rove by yon riverside, said Lily to Mary, will ye be my bride? The blackbirds and thrushes sang in chorus encore the praises of Mary and of love fair and sure. She is loved by all young men, and that does grieve me. My heart's in the bosom of lovely Mary. Thank you. George, if you were concerned. Oh, I just splashed myself with my water then, sorry. I was in Cumbria yesterday with George recording for, I should speak into the microphone really, recording for my album, which will come out in Feb next year, this coming year, 2024. With LGBT History Month, not for LGBT History Month. It's been, I would like to say it was a coincidence, but it wasn't. And the album's all about queer stories and queer narratives, and the history that maybe we don't get taught in schools, but maybe we should. And it was so nice to get to hear George on my songs. He's just a very cool person. Obviously, he has immaculate taste in hair. Also, before you got here today, I'm freshly shorn on my head, and there are a few slightly long hairs. And George, being the real Samaritan that he is, had a pair of scissors in his bag and cut them shorter for me. And that's what the community is about. This next song is called Easily Bruised, and I wrote it not that long ago. I think that our identities and our relationships with queerness and with the queer community can change throughout time, throughout where we are, where we're based. And I wrote this song about my relationship to queerness, and kind of when I came out and I met my partner, I was 18, and I genuinely thought just by existing I was absolutely like at the apex of the gay rights movement, which maybe wasn't the case. I think it's interesting how I spent a lot of time being told by the people around me that what I was doing and what we were doing by just existing and being together was really brave, which was lovely. And in some ways it felt like it was, but also it's an interesting thing to carry as a young person, this idea of being brave, and whether or not that's something you want to be when, a lot of the time you just want to be safe. And that's what this song kind of is about. So yeah, this is Easily Bruised. I don't miss those 17-year-old girls, sweaty hands as we kissed, head spinning, toes curled, as if choosing to exist We thought we'd changed the world. Now I am easily bruised. That I know. Backing up normal conversation with marks or Bordeaux, but as if not to startle, you and I blew. You are to me what I am to you. Now I can't pretend I didn't miss those 17-year-old girls, sweaty hands as we kissed, head spinning, toes curled, as if choosing to exist. We thought we'd changed the world. Something more, subdued, is that you let go of my hand whilst he spoke to you. So much unknown and so much unsaid. I wonder the scripture playing out whilst you lay in our bed. So much to say, and I'm still confused. And maybe I wouldn't be if I hadn't been so easily bruised. Thank you. George Sampson, would you like to come back? What did you get up to?
Just got on Facebook for a bit.
Did you? Nice.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to be playing with Maddie and being able to listen to Maddie up close. Have a round of applause for Maddie Morris. I know I said that like it's the end of the gig, but we've still got about half an hour to go, so don't leave.
This next tune is called Sorry the Day I Was Married, and it's a traditional tune collected in 18-something by Frank Kidson. It's collected in Leeds. And when I was doing the research for this project that I've mentioned a few times, there was a lovely tune called Sorry the Day, which is I found the tune that I've just mentioned, and then I was looking through the archives, and there was a story called Sorry the Day I Was Married, which was like, oh, that's cool. What a weird connection. And it was of a person who had grown up in Halifax, moved to Leeds later in life, and he talked about how he got married when he was in his sort of 20s, and speaks about how it wasn't that he thought he wanted to get married to this woman, but he felt like there was just no other option. Like no other option had ever been presented to him. And when he realised he was queer, you know, it was kind of this this sort of tricky and confusing experience, because he at this point had a wife and kids, and he felt a lot of anger towards the fact that he'd never known that was even an option for him. And so, this is his story. And you can, if you search "Sorry the Day I Was Married" on the West Yorkshire Queer Stories archive, there's the full testimonial, I guess, of his story, and also you can listen to him speaking about it. And it's really interesting, and a really interesting perspective that I think, as a younger person, I don't know if I can still call myself a young person. I'm trying though. As a younger person in the LGBT community, it's very different to my narrative, and it's really important to kind of make space for narratives that are different than our own. This is the song of that story, and it's called "Sorry the Day I Was Married." Have never told this story silently to my grave. Some things in life were best unspoken. These are my dying days. When we grew up, we had but nothing, holes in our Sunday shoes, listening idly Sunday service, learn to avoid taboos. Sorry the day I had no life of my own, married that day because it was all I'd known. I was 39 when I first met her. I was my father's son. At least that's what they'd always told me. I was afraid to run. Now I am the breadwinner for my family, a father of two. Can't speak of the shame that it would bring me if they only knew. Sorry the day I had no life of my own, married that day because it was all I'd known. I was 49 when I met Johnny, the love of my life. And just like me, he had a family, 2 daughters and a wife. But shame is contemptuous and insulting, and grows up fast like vine. After just 6 months of joy and sorrow, I bid Johnny goodbye. Sorry the day I had no life of my own, married that day because it was all I'd known. Sorry the day I had no life of my own, married that day because
So it's a pleasure to be back here. This is where I studied, and I started here 10 years ago this September. So if Maddie's not allowed to feel young anymore, I don't know what that makes me. Do we have any music students in today? Nice.
Nice one.
I enjoyed that. That was good. When I walked in today, I was holding this and someone said, "What's that?" It's called a bouzouki. It's originally of Greek origin, and then Irish musicians took it over to Ireland in the sort of 60s, 70s, and now I'm playing not Irish or Greek music with it, so make of that what you will.
This next song is called The Salmon. And it's in a bit of a weird tuning, if you didn't guess by how long it's taken us to get there. So salmon swim against the current, and it's kind of a few different theories as to why. Apparently it's a mating instinct, but obviously when I first found this out in the David Attenborough documentary, and I was watching it and I was like, oh, that's a bit stupid, isn't it? Why would you swim against the current? That's obviously making things harder. And then I kind of reflected on that and the way that for a lot of queer people we get told and we hear throughout our lives that we're making things harder for ourselves. Wouldn't you just do it the easy way? Wouldn't you just, why make things more difficult? And also, outside of queer identity, there's so much of that judgment where other people look on and they say, why are you doing things this way when you could do things this way? And I wrote the song originally about queer identity, but I was doing a project with Mind the Gap, which is an organisation that support neurodivergent disabled artists in Bradford. And I also thought a lot about it in relation to my identity as a neurodivergent person and kind of the way that people's processes are different and people's identities are different. And it's not that there's a right way and a wrong way. It's just that there's different ways and different ways to exist in the world, I guess. And this song is kind of about that metaphor and that idea and the idea that, salmon are swimming against the current. It's not because they're doing things wrong. It's just the way they innately are. And so many things in human life is that way. This is on my EP Upstream, which I didn't bring. I left it in my house. And after parking in that very scary car park, I decided not to go back and get them. I might just leave my car there now for the rest of my life. But you can listen to it on Spotify. It has a lovely clip from the Yorkshire Film Archive of a guy speaking about being queer in Leeds back in the 80s. So, yeah. Well, she said that she loved me, but she didn't love the hubris that I'd take my darkness with me until I'm tied up with it. And she said that she loved me like wildflowers that grow in spring, but she can't accept the poison of traditional wedding rings. Wedding rings. I said our love, it is the same She says their love, it is the bushes, patiently evergreen. She says, my love, you are a salmon, insistent on swimming upstream. She said that she loved me, but she didn't love the hubris that I take my darkness with me until I'm tied up with it. And she said that she loved me like wildflowers that grow in spring, but she can't accept the poison of traditional wedding rings. Thank you. Thanks so much. Five. Oh, that makes more sense, doesn't it? Got there in the end. This next song is called Cedar Swamp, and I learned it from the singing of Jean Ritchie, who's a fantastic Appalachian singer. And I love buying secondhand CDs. There's something so juicy about like a slightly crusty secondhand CD. And I first heard this on a secondhand CD that I bought on eBay. I think it was £1.50. It was an absolute bargain.
Maddie does actually have slightly crusty, juicy secondhand CDs of her own on her own website. She didn't bring them with her today, but if you would like a crusty CD, if you want to splash out on a crusty CD, then you know where to go.
You do indeed. So yeah, this is Cedar Swamp. I really like this song because it's got a line, the older she gets, the prettier she gets. And I think that is just a really lovely line in the song. Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, this is Cedar Swamp. there I kissed my honey. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. We're going to play you our last song. I'm actually in the right tuning. Well, isn't that lovely? George has some CDs if you would like to buy a crusty CD in person. I'm Maddie Morris. You can find me on the social medias as Maddie Morris. You can find George Sansome on the social medias as George Sansome. And also he's in just this like little band called Granny's Attic. This final song is called Without Shame. I'm just going to have a sip from my rap cup.
Can we have a massive thank you to everybody here at Leeds Uni, the wonderful tech team, the wonderful live stream team. Thank you very much, all of you. Cheers, Jack. Cheers, Kelly. Thank you. And a round of applause for the amazing Maddie Morris.
It's very kind of you. Yeah, it's been really cool to be part of this. I didn't go to Leeds Uni. I wish I had. It's very cool. Yeah.
You're only saying that because they gave you a gig. That's not what you said 20 minutes ago.
But no, it's really cool to be part of this concert series. I'll be here later, in fact, talking on a panel about being a musician. I think it might be about something more specific than that, but I don't think I've read to the end of the email yet. Is anyone on this panel here that is involved in that? Okay, cool. Well, what's said in the room stays in the room. This is a safe space. This next song I wrote as part of a project I was doing quite recently with a few different disability arts organisations, including, and there's a big long list, Tourette's Hero, Unlimited, Collaborative Touring Network, Mind the Gap, and one more. And it was to kind of think about identities and being a neurodivergent or disabled artist. And part of the project was I got to run a really cool workshop with people who identified as disabled and as members of the LGBT community in Bradford, talking about what it was like to be queer and disabled in Bradford. And an incredible person called Anis, who's an activist, came along to the session and spoke about how their experience is that in sort of disabled friendly spaces they fear homophobia, and in queer spaces they fear disableism, and kind of what a tricky dual identity that is to have. And this song was kind of inspired by that conversation and inspired by the conversations that were able to happen because of that project, and kind of the importance of having safe spaces and how it feels to exist with dual identities and such. And the tune is a tune collected in Bradford. I believe it's an old version of Barbara Allen, which was very cool. In part of the project, I got to listen to loads of different tunes. And did you know the song Bingo the Dog was collected in Bradford? That was a new fact for me. It was great. I worked with a musician called Flo who played the tunes, and I got to listen to all of them from the archives because I couldn't read the scrawls. And I was listening, and I was like, this sounds a lot like Bingo the Dog. And it was. Anyway, this is not to that tune.
Yeah, that's our encore.
Yeah. This is Without Shame. Thank you so much for coming. Please come and have a chat afterwards. I've got a mailing list that you can sign up to on my website. If you'd be up for doing that, that'd be amazing. It really, really helps because the internet algorithms are confusing and I hate social media. Thanks so much. This is Without Shame. I wonder where it is I belong, my feet firmly grounded here. The world outside of this life of mine, I've taught myself not to hear. I dream for a space where I belong, where people look like me. But it's for tolerance that I long, far gone, I hope they'll origin I can't recall, of when every day became a stone wall. I long for a family that understands the way my life is wired. My brain too busy, my body wrong, always somehow undesired. My community doesn't look like me, though they try to play along. Whether I'm here or I'm there, I know something about me is wrong. And oh, I feel small. The origin I can't recall. Of when every day became a stone wall. Have you ever imagined how it feels to exist like me? Have you ever imagined how it feels to sense the shame other people see? Have you ever imagined how it feels to be looked at with pity? And oh, this life is joy. This mind is joy. And community is joy. I long for a space where I am as I stand, and I am enough. I long for the strangers that I meet to recognize my love. I long for space in community. I long to feel the same. But more than anything that I hope is to be seen without shame. Yes, more than anything that I hope is to be seen without shame. Thank you.
I just want to say on behalf of West Yorkshire Queer Stories how honoured we are that Maddie chose to use the archives and interpret them in their beautiful voice, and joined by George's incredible musicianship. So I've got the t-shirt, been there. West Yorkshire Queer Stories doesn't exist as an organisation anymore. I was on the steering group, and Ray at the Bookish Type, the bookshop, used to work for Queer Stories, and we also want to thank the West Yorkshire Archive for holding those stories for us, because I think they are really important. And thank you both, come back so much, for honouring all that